Hello, everyone. How we doing today? You like our new intro, Joey?
That's my Chris Collins.
I was just about to say, I love it. I love your guys' new intro. I love the whole new rebrand. If I'm being honest, I love what you guys are doing over here. I've definitely checked out multiple of your guys' shows since the change, and I'm loving it. I'm just loving your guys' show just generally right now.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Well, in case you didn't see, we are back, and this is the Mile High Sports Symposium under the new name, formerly Orange and Brew, but we have rebranded, so we're still getting in the routine of getting our name down and all that stuff. But we're here to talk Denver sports. Doc, I'm here with Dr. Nicholas Manning at Dr_in Manning. I'm JT Matthews at JT Matthews01 on Twitter, and we have a guest today, someone who we've done lots of podcasts with, going back a few years now. You know, it's been I don't know how long we've been doing this, like 3 or 4 years. So it's been about that long.
Yeah, at least we at least get a pod in a year, which I like. It, and it's always around the same time.
Were we the first pod that you got on?
I think so. Yes. One of them. You were at least close to one of the first podcast.
Yeah, I feel like it was early for sure. I was on the kid before the rest of you were. You just know that.
It's true. Doc was like, there's this kid, Joe. I think we called you JR then, but at JR Drafts, we've been following him. He's got some good stuff in there. We should get him on the pod.
Hotness.
And here we are a few years later, having you on again for, I mean, we've had you on, like you said, about once a year since then, and usually right around draft time, which is, I know we all love the NFL draft, and so we're definitely going to dive into that. Joey, how are things going? Talk to us. How's life? What have you been up to? How's your podcast and all of that going?
I mean, Let's Talk Broncos is doing really good. I think we've put a solid little group together with Let's Talk Broncos that I'm happy about.
Absolutely.
And so the podcast is doing good, and I love this time of year. As you guys know, this is draft time, and this is like literally my favorite time. I like the projection. I like the draft time. To me, is that one time a year where every single fan base thinks they have a shot at winning the Super Bowl next year. So it's just fun and exciting, I think, for everybody involved. So, I love it. I was able to go to the Senior Bowl this year for the first time, and that was a bucket list thing for me that I wanted to do. I mean, I was looking back on my Twitter. I remember it was 2021. I tweeted that I'm going next year. Obviously, it didn't happen the next year, but I finally made it.
Hey, but you didn't give up on your dream. Kids, let it be a lesson for you, okay? You just keep grinding one day.
Absolutely. So, it was fun. I'm doing good just generally. Work's busy, but I love podcasting. I love coming on with you guys. I love the whole process. So, yeah.
I'm throwing this out to the ether. One, because it's like if you throw it out there, it's like a social contract. If you say it out loud and someone else hears it, you're more likely to do it. Just accountability part. I think we need to let's do a mobile trip next year. Mobile.
Do it.
I'm down. I think it'd be great. One, I've always wanted to do it. And then it's like, and my brother lives like an hour from there. So it'd give me a reason to go to Alabama to see him. We could go watch that stuff. So we've done the drafts. We ran into each other a few times at draft in Vegas. I've done spring training, which is a good time. People should try that out. If you haven't went to Talking Stick, it's pretty dope. It's nice when the Rockies have prospects or players that you want to watch. So right now it's probably not the greatest time, but at some point it's a good thing to do. And then the drafts or the Senior Bowl. So I haven't done that. Maybe we could knock out the combine at some point. That'd be pretty dope.
That'd be cool. Cool. Yeah. And Mobile during this time of year, it's also Mardi Gras, and their whole thing down there, just speaking to the locals, is that New Orleans stole Mardi Gras from us.
Yes,
that's their whole deal down there. So it's like parades going on. It's really actually kind of fun to be around. Just in Mobile that time of year.
Writing it down right now.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think besides those, the only other thing I want to do is NBA Summer League too. I'd love to go to Vegas for Summer League. That's on my list for sure, just because you get to see, your team's young prospects, but also, you get to see those top end draft guys that are coming in.
And like the who's who of the NBA and like the sports league.
Yeah.
They're all there.
Everyone's around there.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's dope. All right. Well, we've got a list, boys. We've got a list.
We got the list going. Let's start. I want to get some perspective. I know, Joe, you're a NBA fan, but specifically a Nuggets fan. I just want to get your take. How do you feel the Nuggets are faring? I know we're coming off a championship year. Pressure's high. Nikola Jokic looks like Nikola Jokic. We lost some pieces in the offseason. We're heading into we just passed the trade deadline, heading into All-Star break. How are you feeling about this team overall? Are you optimistic? Are you worried at all? Is there anything that any predictions you want to make for the season moving forward?
I am all out on the regular season. That's the take I have. I really am. Like I'm going to sit there and watch the games. I'm going to enjoy them. But if the Nuggets lose a couple in a row, just like they have recently, I'm not going to be the guy freaking out about it. I'm not. Yep. I saw what they can do in the playoffs, and ultimately, when the playoffs rolls around, I just need 7-8 guys. So do I have 7-8 guys? That's what I'm trying to think of. I'm like, all right, I think I do. Aaron Gordon is that backup big for us. He can play the backup 5. And then Peyton Watson came out of nowhere this year, and he looks like he could definitely defend in the playoffs. For sure. Absolutely can. Yep. And maybe just hopefully Christian Brown continues to get a better feel on offense, and I'm going to feel great going into the playoffs. As long as health is good, I don't care what happens. And I've just been, I love following the Nuggets and everybody on Twitter, and every single game, everybody's panic mode. We need to figure something out. I don't see it that way. I don't, because I'm not worried about my 9th and 10th guy as much as everybody feels.
Yeah.
I think that's well put, right? It's like you forget, we've talked about it a few times on here, like in the playoffs, your bench shortens, right? It's not it's not like NFL where it's like you're not using your wide receiver 1 as your punt returner in the playoffs, probably. Like it's just you go with kind of who gets there, because it's just you got to grind out these 4 series and we get a dub. It's funny because it's like the last 2 games I got blown out, so that part worries me. Like back-to-back no-shows. Why KCP played last game when he obviously wasn't right. It's admirable. I like that, the fact that guys want to play. But like you said, Troy, there's so much more to play here for, right? We're playing for a championship, not in-season banners, Lakers. Okay, we're playing for like big ones here, and even with that, right? Like they're 4th in the West after atrocious outings, right? Like just terrible, and they're 2 games out of the top seed. So let's chill. Like we know what this team can do, what they could be, and like you said, are they 8 deep? 9 if you got to have some people in there mop up for some other stuff, or a defensive matchup.
Yeah, for trouble.
I think you got. I think Peyton Watson's resurgence or ascension has been phenomenal. Christian Brown's playing a little bit better now. I think maybe just the first half was a feeling out period. A little bit more was expected. I expect them to get someone on the buyout market. We've talked about that quite a bit. Get a vet that wants to come win a championship, a la Reggie Jackson, right? And then he pivoted, turned that into a deal to be a good contributor here, which he has been. So I feel good about it. I'm not overly concerned. When you have the best player in the world, one out of 10 people on the floor at a time, that's a pretty good percentage of like our best guy is better than everyone else's best guy. And their starting 5 is still the best in the league. So as long as they enter the playoffs healthy, I do think they need a top 4 seed though. I think especially if you're going to get Phoenix early, or someone like that Phoenix or even the Kings is a challenging matchup for this group. So I'd really like them to make sure that they got home court advantage in the first round. If they can get a top 2 seed where they can have it in the or top 3 seed even, where you make sure you have it in the second round, that'd be great. If you can, depending on matchups and all that stuff. So that part I do think matters, but I think health first, seeding second.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I just remember freaking out down the stretch last year when we lost so many games and guys were sitting, and Jokic clearly lost interest in the MVP conversation and being like, I don't know, we're still top seed, but we kind of had a big lead that really dwindled at the end there. And like, are we going in with bad momentum, that sort of thing? And then it turned out to all not matter. So I'm more with Joey on this, like, but regular season games are fun and they're good measuring stick for your team. But I also think it's important to remember, like, you're always going to be hunted as the champions. So you're going to get everyone's best shot every night. And that can get pretty exhausting. So it's inevitably you're going to run out of gas sometimes, especially with the length of the season. And then I've heard, I don't remember where I heard it, but a few times I've heard maybe DNVR, maybe a national show, but Denver's got number one clutch defense. So yeah. When you have the number one clutch defense, it just shows you can flip that switch. This team's a unit. It's not a bunch of individual parts working, trying to work together. It's a bunch of, it's a well-oiled machine. And so I think down the stretch, I'm not too worried. I didn't feel like they were going to make any moves. They didn't, inevitably. Let's get some guys some rest, and see what the rest of the season holds. But, I don't even know. Would I love to have home court advantage? Sure. Do I think it's essential? Not really. I think it helps for sure. But I think you get there, you have everyone healthy. That's the most important.
Yeah.
See, I think it's important because I don't think it will be as easy as last year, right? As easy as, they dominated. So they didn't even get to a game 7. Game 6 was as far as any series got. I don't think that they will be that fortunate this year to, even though this team is better, I think they're better equipped this year, maybe. But we'll see. And so I think it's important. I think if they don't have it, I still have faith in them to be able to get through a series in 6. I also believe in their capability to win on the road, right? They went and shellacked the Suns to close out that series on their home court. They lost 2 games there because they have 2 of the best scorers in the world and they went epic. So, and they still lost by like single digits, right? Like both of those were games to the end, and that's as good as they played. They won both games in LA. So I agree. I don't think that I don't think that I would sacrifice health to try and get a seed or 2. I do think having home court advantage, at minimum, I would say the first round, if you're that 4, like having it in that 4 or 5, because that's usually a dogfight, that will be important. But, if that's at the cost of ankle or hammy or some tenderness, nope. Like, no, just shut it down. We feel good about this team's ability to be able to turn it on, like you said, JT. So I'm excited. It's so weird to be like in the, the Avs and Nuggets have given us this a little bit of like, yeah, the regular season's cool. Like it matters when we get to the postseason.
Right.
And then we have some other teams that we'll talk about that's like, I just want you to play good in the regular season. We won't even worry about the playoffs. Doesn't even matter yet.
It's true. Well, let's transition to Broncos, because that's really what we brought you.
Rockies talk, because
all the Rockies talk. Right?
Wait. Okay, that's done. We're
done. Segment over.
So just really quick before we get into the draft stuff, because the Broncos officially announced Pete Carmichael's addition as offensive analyst and passing game coordinator, as well as Jim Leonard, former DC at Wisconsin, as the Broncos defensive back coach and defensive passing game coordinator. So, Joey, what are your thoughts about those additions? So obviously Christian Parker, up and coming coach, has left. Sad for sure. Jim Leonard, a guy that as the defensive coordinator at Wisconsin, did a really good job with, they get a bunch of 2 and 3 stars really over there, but former Bronco 1 year great. And just wanted to get your thoughts on those 2 additions. How do you see it panning out? Does it help, hurt, don't care, indifferent?
Yeah, I think as far as Pete Carmichael goes, it's just like I trust Sean Payton with the offense, and he saw success with Pete Carmichael. So why not run that back? That worked. We've seen it work in the NFL, and it wasn't that long ago. I don't like that people pretend like that was like a decade ago that the Broncos, like that Sean Payton saw a good offense. No, it was pretty recent, and it was with Pete Carmichael. So yeah, bring him aboard. I want to see that. As far as the Jim Leonard, that's the one that is really interesting to me. For those that don't know, like this is a really highly thought of defensive guy here. This is a guy that to me it felt like wanted to just get out of college ball. That's the feel I get. Because he could have taken almost any defensive coordinator job in college ball.
He was probably even an opportunity to be a head coach at a few opportunities for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And then he turned down the whose job was it in the NFL? The Packers job. When they hired LaFleur wanted Jim Leonard, and Jim Leonard said, "No, I don't want your defensive coordinator job." And then just this last offseason interviewed for the Eagles defensive coordinator job. So that's the type of guy you're getting.
Yep.
At DB coach for the Broncos, which is awesome. And the ties there are, this is a guy that played under Rex Ryan for many years. Obviously, the Broncos almost hired Rex Ryan last offseason. He also played for the Saints under Sean Payton when they had Rob Ryan. So that's the type of defensive coordinator or the defensive mind you're getting, the style of defense possibly that the Broncos want to bring more of to Denver. And I honestly think it's an awesome addition for this year. It's amazing. But if the Broncos want to keep him, they probably have to promote him next offseason. Yeah. He's going to get a coordinator job sooner rather than later. To me, that one feels like Vance Joseph insurance. It feels like whether Vance leaves next year or gets fired next year, we have a guy we want to promote, and it's Jim Leonard. So I think this is an awesome hire all around. I'm just interested to see how it plays out going past the season.
That's great insight. It is definitely Vance insurance. I doubt Vance is here past this next year. Hopefully that is he earns an opportunity to become a head coach again. I like Vance. I like the turnaround that he had with this group last year. And Jim Leonard is definitely a guy that will be a DC when he wants to be, kind of thing. Like you said, interviews for some of those. And I think this will be a really good place for him. So Christian Parker was phenomenal. I really liked what Parker brought. So sad to see him go, kind of like Evero the year before. You just wish them the best and hope that we can replace some of the good things that went out the door. I think Jim Leonard is absolutely fully capable of being able to do that, not only as a former player, but he's DC in the Big Ten it's not nothing. That's good football there. You're game planning against Michigan and Ohio State, among others, right? Those are big boy programs, and there's a lot on the line there. So I'm excited. I think it's a really good hire. Pete Carmichael, I think the band, get the band back together, like you said, right? Like it worked. Why not? So everyone's kind of back together. People forget, as far back as 2020, the Saints were, one of the best offenses in the NFL. And then again, getting the most out of very marginalized, marginal quarterbacks in 2021 cannot be understated, in my opinion. And I think what it does is it just reduces the amount of miscommunications that can occur when you have people that are familiar with one another, right? I have no doubt that they have a shared language. Lombardi, Peyton, and now Carmichael. It's kind of one of those you don't have to say everything because you already know what's expected. And when you do that, one, I think you can get more done quicker because it's less time that you have to corral and regroup, re-strategize, that kind of stuff. Because we already know they already know what Sean's going to come in and say. when they look at film or when they look at film from the game before or what have you, you already know what your boss is looking at because I've worked for him for 15 years, right? Like I know what his pressure points are. I know what his pain points are. I know what he's going to say if we block it this way or if we don't run it this way, which I think it's going to be more helpful, especially breaking in a new quarterback, because that's less time that the coaches have to communicate and more time that they can put in streamlining that information to hopefully a young QB, as we will discuss soon.
Yeah, and I think it's a good reminder that, part of bringing Sean Payton in was to be able to make some of these kinds of hires, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think, you can feel like at times we probably glossed over some really good head coach options over the years, especially young guys that could come in, like a la D'Amico Ryan, someone like that could come in, Gerard Mayo, who's now a head coach. That remains to be seen how successful he'll be. But guys like that have that upside and potential. But when you hire on a guy that is a Super Bowl winning head coach, and you have opportunities to bring in guys that have some cachet, that have some experience, that want to work with a successful head coach at this level. And so, these types of hires it's a good reminder that, there's a plan, outside of just bringing in a head coach that's going to, improve the team. There's connections, those relationships matter,
Yeah, no, I mean, it's absolutely true. And that's Sean Payton was known for putting together good staffs in the past. And that's what you want to see carried over to the Broncos. I think there were some hiccups in this year's staff, but ultimately, like Zach Strief, who can complain about what he did with the O-line this last year? Garrett Bowles, people forget he was coming off a broken leg.
Yeah.
He had the season he had. Lloyd Cushenberry looked very, very, very replaceable. And now I think he has a chance to hit the open market and be one of the higher paid centers in the league. And Quinn Minor's vast improvement this year.
Yeah.
Good improvement across the offensive line. Like there was some good coaching this year from the Broncos. I'm just interested in what this means for Vance Joseph. And that's just something we're going to have to wait and see. We're going to have to wait and see what all of this does. And you're absolutely right, JT. The Pete Carmichael, the Sean Payton, that pairing, just bring it back home. We want that. We want that Saints offense back. Whatever worked over there, we want some of that, please.
For sure. Well, let's jump into some draft talk then. Let's start with the Senior Bowl, since that's your first Senior Bowl, right? I'm correct with that, right? Just wanted to make sure. Just give us a rundown. How was it like out there? What did you expect? Was it how you expected it to be? What are some of the little insider information now that you've been there? Just kind of an idea of what kind of the structure of that looks like.
Yeah, totally. So I literally came the day it started, and I planned it terribly. Don't travel with me. I'm a terrible driver. I'm the worst. But so I missed the first practice, and then I showed up for the second practice of that same day. But I had to haul it from the airport down there, and I actually met a player's family, a nice Smith, the running back from Texas A&M. We were both sitting there waiting for our rental car, like, this is taking forever. So we finally got there both at the nick of time, and it was really cool. Like the structure of it is, okay, first you got the American team, and then you got the national team practices. They're kind of back to back, and in between both of them, there's a 10-minute period to go interview the players on the field if they choose to be interviewed. So they have to cross a little yard line, and then they're free. If you can ask them if they want to get interviewed, which was really cool. I was able to interview some guys. Colorado's own Luke McCaffrey, for example, is out of the Senior Bowl, and I wanted to ask him some questions about Valor Christian and his days down there, which was cool. Some of the offensive and defensive linemen, because that's what I love. I love looking at that type of stuff, and
for sure.
It was just cool. It was 3 days of that, and then you actually had the game, and it was fun. You just see so many people that otherwise you wouldn't be able to see. Like I was walking out of a bar, and here comes John Lynch. Super Bowl weekend, Super Bowl time, by the way. Walked right by me. Or I'm at another bar, and Charles Davis from the TV is sitting right next to me. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. Or I was talking to this one dude for like an hour, and it turned out to be a Browns coach, one of the guys on the Browns. Like, this is
wow.
It's just crazy. Like the different connections you meet down there are insane. So yeah, it was a really fun weekend. Shout out to Nagy and everybody down there who plans that and everything, because it's a blast, and you actually do get a different appreciation for these players as well.
Yeah, Nagy always puts together a good event. Like, he's been doing it for I don't know how long now, but it's always, it's probably the premier, as far as competition, scouting game.
He's made it a desirable place to be, right? It is not an afterthought. It's not something that the kids pass up on, right? It's an honor if they get selected to the Senior Bowl. There's a strong, correlation between performance at the Senior Bowl and up in your draft stock. So guys know that it's a good opportunity to showcase themselves. Yep, and like you said, Joy, you get people from all walks of the NFL circles down there, from head coaches to GMs to, right? I mean, it's kind of like got to almost the combine in like personnel visiting, right? And writers and all that kind of stuff. So it has become appointment television, in the sense of it's a place to be, right? We watch the practices.
Yeah.
Like we're all like degenerates. Like, people love football so much as we'll watch college practices, but we do because of the marketing and the good work that Aggie's done. And kudos to him, for really getting that set up and getting that out there for the players. I think it's done immense things for the guys trying to make it. Look at Quinn Miners, right? I mean, that's where he didn't get a play for an entire year before that, goes to the Senior Bowl, becomes a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah.
So, you get a chance and you take advantage of it. So with that being said, Joy, we're going to ask you some questions.
Please do.
All right. So in your estimation, what's a relatively unknown guy to most of us that you maybe even undersold yourself or wasn't quite sure about, that really took you by surprise this week?
I think it's a good question. I think it's a great question. And my guy that I walked away, I was like, I absolutely need to go rewatch the film on this guy to make sure what I'm seeing here is what I see on the film. Like I said earlier, I'm an O-line, D-line guy. That's what I really like looking at. And it was Christian Haynes, the guard from UConn. Yeah. He was a baller that entire weekend. Like, there was some questions about, okay, he doesn't have the longest arms or whatever, but when he gets into your plates, his grip strength is amazing. And then also, like, I can't stress enough, at the offensive line, you want to see that knee bend. You want to see them be able to bend their knees and sit down. Yeah. And he was so good at that. And then you go back and watch the film and you see plenty of it. It's like, this guy is a player. This is probably, a player that might get drafted in the top 3 rounds of the draft. And I saw it there. So that would be a player that I would highlight and be like, that's a under the radar player that I'm not sure the average NFL draft fan knows of, and may even be bummed if their team selects him. But I'm here to tell you that is not the case. Be hyped. He's a fun player. He's a really fun player to watch.
Hey, it was a 2-star coming out of high school. Isn't it crazy how just development is different, right? And because I think he's like 6'3", good 3'10", right. 315. That's like you said, it's like it's never that exciting to draft a guard. Never. However, the teams usually that invest in those positions are pretty good. So if your team takes, especially kind of in the in the first 3 rounds, that means they think they got a starter, which if they think it, then you should think it, and that's probably pretty good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyone? Let's stay in the trenches.
Okay.
If you were the Broncos have not drafted a tackle in any round since 2017. If this year is the first year that they do, maybe what's your, they should get this guy, he'd be phenomenal. And or, this is a nice developmental guy that they spent a later pick on. would be someone that you would like to see here?
There is this offensive line class is a special class. I think this is one of the better offensive line classes I've seen enter the draft since I've been covering the sport. At least it is the best. And there's so many guys the Broncos could select at that 12th pick, and it would make sense because there's so much discussion. There's like 5 guys that people are like, he's my 3rd ranked tackle. There's like 5 of them. It's impossible to figure out. My guy is Troy Fatanu from Washington. He is really good. There's a lot of talk about, is he a guard? And I don't think so. I think he's a tackle. He's one of those. He's so athletic, guys. He might not be the tallest guy, but he's so athletic getting to the second level, and he just wants to punch you in the face. Honestly, that's a big thing for line. You want to see that. You want to see them be physical, and that's something he does. And pass pro as well. He has all the cool little fakes. Like he might shoot a hand out there, let the DN show their move. It was a fake. Now I'm on you. Like he has all of those stuff in his in what he does as a pass blocker. He's my guy right now. I really like him. I think most people have him more as a later in the first round guy because I think a lot of people are like, he's a guard. I think he's a tackle. I'm going to stamp my opinion there. And yes, he can play both guard and tackle. I think so. If he doesn't work,
it looks like he's got the measurables, right? So his arms measured out at 34 3/4.
It's how aggressive he is. People think he's too aggressive to play tackle. He gets over his heels sometimes, and they're like, that works really well at guard, maybe not tackle.
Yeah. Well,
would you take him at 12? I mean, if he's there, I mean, would you take that pick at 12? I mean, you always weigh value, over depending on, whether you think he's interior or a tackle. Would you be upset if they took someone like that at pick 12?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't mind it at all. Just because he's going to be a difference maker somewhere on my offensive line. And I can't say that for everybody on this list. Like the kid Mims from Georgia, he's a freak show. He's like 340 pounds. He's like 6'5" or 6'6", whatever he is. He moves really well. The guy has started like 5 games in his college career.
Right.
So, like, if he doesn't pan out, there's a good chance he doesn't pan out. Fatanu, I'm like, okay, if he doesn't work at tackle, you can play guard. If you don't work at guard, you could play center. I think he could play all 5 positions across my offensive line. And I think there's value to that. There's absolutely value to that.
Oh, absolutely.
Where at the minimum, I'm hitting a double here. That's good value. It could be a home run, but at minimum, I am hitting a double. So I wouldn't be mad at it. I think like this last week has been all JJ McCarthy edition week, like on Twitter. A week ago, most people were saying he was a second-round pick. So we'll have to see how the whole draft shakes out. Maybe by the time the draft happens, he will be a consensus top 15 pick.
Yeah, you never know. That people, it's very fluid, especially as you come up to the actual draft day. So it'll be fun to see that where people, the risers and fallers, so to speak. Let's go back to Senior Bowl real quick. I want to talk about the quarterbacks because obviously the Broncos are in the quarterback market. And I think there were some mixed reviews about who came out as, who looked the best throughout practice and the game. I've heard Bo Nix, went as the week went on, was improving. Some people thought Penix Jr. looked the best. Some people thought Spencer Rattler looked the best, or at least did the most for his stock. What was your overall takeaway about that position for those guys at the Senior Bowl specifically?
Okay. Well, ultimately, I was unimpressed by the quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl. I don't think anyone really separated. Well, I will say you want to go in there and see fireworks from Nix and Penix, and that's just something we didn't really see. The first day you give them a pass, right? It's you're figuring everything out. This is your first day here. Who really cares what happens? Second day, you want to see some things get better in practice, and it really didn't get better. It wasn't until the third day where I saw Nix and Penix start to make some good throws. Ultimately, I think Rattler had the best pound for pound week. Just if I had no film available and I didn't know who was good or who was bad out here,
Right.
I would say Spencer Rattler was the best quarterback on the field from both teams. I think a lot of that has to do with he has nothing to lose. I only have stuff to gain from this.
Yeah.
Where if I make a mistake, who cares? If I make
Yeah.
a really good throw, this is going to drive my stock up. And so I like to see that from him. And I thought he had a really good week.
Yeah, any takeaways on Pratt? I know I've seen that name going around Twitter, at least the week of the Senior Bowl. People like his intangibles. Anything from him that you like specifically?
Rattler,
Pratt.
Yeah. I thought he was pretty consistent. But he was a little all over the place too. But like I said, did he noticeably look worse than Penix or Nix? I would say no. Like he looked like he would make sense right in that group over that week. It was you could tell the players were good, but I don't think Nix or Penix separated themselves from Pratt, which is something interesting, I would say, just because of the hype Nix and Penix get, right? Like, so I think he fit in right with those guys.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. That's good to know. I think, with the combine coming up, we'll get some separation of those three more so there. But, otherwise, we rely on the tape and it just comes down to what your favorite flavor is.
Yeah.
Doc, you got any other questions about the Senior Bowl?
Well, I do. One, I think that the Broncos are going to need a center. I think Lloyd Cushenberry, and good for him, is going to price himself out of coming back. Cedric Van Pran was a guy that I really liked out of Georgia. He's kind of like, there's some fatigue there, 3-year starter. He was down at Mobile. I didn't get a chance really to watch the trenches. So I want to get your take on, or maybe even transferable interior lineman. So one, was he noticeable? I think that he was a good enough player. What about Zach Frazier, Angie Rame from Oklahoma, Charles Turner, any of those guys? Yep, Jackson Powers Johnson.
Charles Turner from LSU was really good. He impressed me there. He was a good player, and that's a player that you could probably get later, and that's a developmental possible starter there in your interior offensive line. And then Jackson Power Johnson, he only had that one day of practice, but boy, was it a dominant day of practice.
Yeah.
He looks the part, man. He wants to hit people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the Quentin Nelson comps are fair?
I don't know.
I've gotten that a few times. Like maybe not to that degree of investment, but similar, like just nasty, really good athlete, built like a tank.
Right. I think like all of that definitely makes sense. He's a monster. I wouldn't be shocked to see him be like, I think, people don't want to take your interior offensive line early in the draft, but when you look at like the hit rate, the highest hit rate is your interior offensive lineman.
Yeah, 100%.
So like it would make sense if the Broncos traded back and took a guy like him. I would be happy because I am like 90% sure that I have a starter there at center for at least the next 10 years, probably.
Yep.
So another guy is Graham Barton. He didn't compete at the Senior Bowl, but he went to Duke, and he played tackle there, but played center his freshman year, and he'll definitely have to switch in interior. I wouldn't be shocked if he went in the first round either. Like I said, this offensive line class is insane. One of the top 3 centers. You might have 3-4 interior offensive linemen go in the first round this year, which is just kind of crazy to say compared to years in the past.
That's great. I love that.
Like you said, right? The line is probably as deep as you've seen it a bit. And the reason why I asked that too is Sean Payton is not scared, one, to draft an offensive lineman early, but 2, to draft an interior offensive lineman early. Eric McCoy in 2019 was 48th pick overall. And then the next year they got Cesar Ruiz at pick 24. So they went back-to-back insides. Both guys were centers. Obviously, I think Cesar moved to guard, but it is, it is a position that they emphasize, or they have emphasized that group. So just something for us to note, that it doesn't, it could mean absolutely that they draft that guy.
Yeah, I would love it. Please do it. I'm the guy. I'm biased. I'm straight up with it. I'm biased. The Broncos could walk out there with 5 offensive linemen that were all drafted in the first round, and I would be happy. I think it would solve a lot of issues. I don't know. I'm biased with it. I'm fine saying that. It's important. Like the Lions this year, I was talking to Nick Kendall on Twitter about that. It all starts. Everyone wants to give credit to how fast they are, and everything like that. It starts up front with them, man. Yep. It does. It starts up front with them. They have a dominant offensive line, and everything works because of that offensive line. The run game. David Montgomery has one of his best years in his career with taking less snaps than any other year. Why? Because the offensive line is ridiculously good.
Yep.
Goff is able to look like a very, very good starter. Why? Because your offensive line is really good. It's important. And Sean Payton, like you said, Doc, is just one thing about him in New Orleans. He rarely, if ever, had a bad offensive line because he invested pieces into it.
Yeah, resource after resource. That is, he believes up front. I mean, the edge, D-tackle, defensive end. I mean, it really early and often. So just for us to be aware, don't be shocked if we all think that they need receivers or what have you, and they just get some beef. And I would be all right with it. My question now, before I give JT an answer to get in there, because I don't want to. Give me your, as of now, so it's February 14th. For those of you who don't know, it's Valentine's Day. Make sure you reach out to your significant other or someone that you're hoping. I don't know, whatever. What is your plan if you were the GM of the Broncos today? It might change for sure. But what would your plan be today? Realistic plan to be able to solve the quarterback issue for the Broncos heading into the season? What would be your plan? Who would you target either in the trade market, free agency, and or the draft, or all of the above? What would be your plan? What do you think would be a realistic thing that the Broncos should do?
Here would be my plan, guys, and I'm going to get booed off stage for it. But I think sometimes you need to get worse before you get better. And I know people want to hate that idea. I feel like the Broncos have been having a mid-off with each other every single year for like 10 years. Like, it's just like, we're going to try. We're going all in, and then they find out, we're not good enough. We're going all in, and we find out we're not good enough. At some point, you need to figure out, okay, we need to revamp things. This isn't just run it back with the same core, figure it out. And with Russell Wilson's contract looming over your head, right? Like, you really can't spend this offseason. It would start next offseason anyways. So I would say in the draft this year, go out there and just try to get cornerstone pieces on your team. And then next year, I would want to take advantage of the quarterback market, I would say. Ultimately, if I fell in love with a guy, like if I met with JJ McCarthy and I was like, this guy, I think he's a baller. I think he's a franchise quarterback. He falls me at 12. Take him. I'm not against that. But I am totally against taking a guy that you absolutely that you're not 100% sold on. This just isn't the year to do that if I'm the Broncos. So I would go out there and go get myself a Jimmy Garoppolo or a Jacoby Brissett or one of these type of guys and be okay with quarterback in Sean Payton's offense that probably better fits that offense than Russell Wilson did. And just, not saying like this is our year. I was looking at the Broncos draft picks the other day. I'm like, why are the Broncos missing a 4th round draft pick? Go back and look. They traded it for Jacob Martin. Like, I don't even think people remember some of this. And this is an all-in. Like, we're trading draft picks for a player. Why are we doing this? Like, we finally have to stop that for a year. Look at the Texans. Look at the Lions. It takes a second, and you can't just go all in right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of stuck in this mentality that the quarterback fixes everything. And I think to a degree that's, obviously that quarterback is the most important position on the field. But yeah, I mean, like you said, you have to have a good foundation. That's why part of what you said about rolling out, if all of your offensive linemen are first round draft picks, it's going to make everyone else's job, or especially that quarterback's job, much easier. But really, the entire offense's job much easier. So I don't mind that viewpoint. I personally, man, I just want a commitment to some young talent at the quarterback position. I don't really need them to go trade up and get someone unless that's what they really feel strongly and passionately about. I like these top end quarterbacks. I think any of the, at least the top three, have a chance to really pan out and be impactful in the league. But man, I just want, if we're gonna commit to a quarterback, I'd rather go with a young guy that we just watch develop, and maybe that means we don't throw him right into the fire this year. You go like a Jacoby Brissett, and then you draft someone a little bit later, or maybe you draft someone at 12 and just let him sit like like you said, like a JJ McCarthy, because obviously there's a lot that remains to be seen about his development and how what he will or can be. Just reading plays on the field and just what's been asked of him throughout his college career, and so. I would probably lean that way. So I guess I think I already know the answer, and we've probably given it away a little bit. But if you were to trade up or trade back in this year's draft, which would you rather go for? Would you rather trade up and get a top end, top flight guy, whether that be a quarterback or not, or would you rather trade back, accumulate picks, and just try and get some additional young talent?
I'll phrase it this way. I'll say unless. Like, knowing what I know, I would trade back. I don't think the Broncos have the resources to trade up to 1, 2, or 3. I think that would be a mistake. I think you're putting yourself in a situation like the Panthers are in right now,
right?
Where you have Bryce Young and nothing else, and also you don't have first-round draft picks, so you can't improve.
Right. And now you don't know if he's the guy because your team's so bad, and you don't know if it's him or not, and you're stuck. Yeah,
absolutely. Sure. So you don't want to do that. If you felt like JJ McCarthy was your guy, you met with him, and it only takes a pick or two to trade up, and you felt very confident that this is the quarterback, sure, go do it. I just don't feel that way because I think his evaluation is very dependent on meeting with him, see how he does on the whiteboard and all of these other things, because he doesn't have the film of the other guys. Like he wasn't ever a volume passer in college like everybody else. So
I couldn't agree more. And you know what though, I'm actually slowly inching onto the JJ McCarthy bandwagon. I was not a fan at any point in time of taking him, partly because of that. Like you are a starter. What was he? 27-1, right? Something like that. And he was never like the focal point. So my feeling initially is like there's something wrong there, right? Like there's something wrong when the most important position on your team is not the most important position on your team. That said, going to look back at it. So the way that I would look at quarterbacks, one is aptitude, right? How much information can they process? How fast can they process it? I think that's all really important. It doesn't have to be scholastic in nature. It definitely has to be read and react, right? Do I know where to go with the football? And can I get better at it with reps? So that's one. Two, arm talent, because you can adjust throwing motion. I think you can improve it. I also think that there's some people that just have a gift, right? Like they just naturally are better at this thing than other people. And then finally, right? I mean, they have fortitude. And so, the physical tools have to be there, but is he willing to catch a shoulder plate to the chops? Like that's something that you can't teach, right? Like you can't be like, all right, I'm gonna teach you how to get hit in the face. I went back and looked a little bit more, and I am more impressed now than I had been. I think he makes some significant, and JT was on this first, so I have to give credit where credit is due out of us. I was not, I'm a lagger. I was not an early adopter of the JJ McCarthy fandom. But when asked to, so I was challenged, when asked to, he absolutely made some big boy throws. And one of those one of the aspect is if you can do it once, it's repeatable, right? I heard John Gruden say this a little bit. Like, let me find, give me their top 15 plays, right? Their top 15 throws, all of that stuff, and I can just recreate those things, right? Dress it up different, do this, but do what they do well. I didn't see a throw he can't make, whether it's on the run to his left, on the run to his right, stepping up in the pocket, deep ball. I didn't see a throw that you're like, we won't be able to use that. So check. Dude won all the time. Check. And then when asked to, he played well.
Yeah.
Some of the games weren't his best performance, but I did bring up, I think on our last pod, against TCU, my good friend Tim Wentz had brought it up. Like, he did pass a lot in that game. I think it was like 40 something times, and the guy was the reason why Michigan was in the game. And they were, their defense no-showed, and he's 21. So you assume if there's some maturity already, he's going to progress. You have more time to build that. So if you're going to invest in a guy that's a project, at least he's 21 in a project and not 24, right? Which has been, some of the later round stuff. And then finally, Jim Harbaugh runs a professional offense, right? I mean, it's two tights, it's play action heavy, which if you saw the Broncos last year, it's exactly what we ran. The emphasis was on the offensive line, running the football, and a guy that can take advantage of it when you have mismatches or play action. That's what Sean Payton would like to do here, as evidenced by our first half of this conversation, is build up front, have a competent running game, and then, be able to process and make the throws, throw the ball the freaking middle when we call for it. Russ, quarterback, that's to be named. And so I'm actually more onto it now. I think if he were there at 12, I would take him. I think having an opportunity to trade back, I don't think you're going to get him. So I believe in Sean Payton. I believe in his football acumen. If he selects a quarterback, I'll give weight to that because I think he knows that position pretty well. All things aside, if that isn't the route that they go, because I think if that's a guy that you feel like can be the guy and you're committed, like everyone said, you commit to the resources. Let's not Drew Lock this thing where you're like a foot in, a foot out. You're like, maybe he's it. Nope. I'm giving you 3 years, man. We're going to see how it goes. If they're not willing to do that with anybody, I absolutely think they need to trade back. The issue being is who's running the draft, though. Sean Payton doesn't trade back. Sean Payton trades up. There were several years where they had 4 or 5 draft picks in a draft because of deals. And so it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, one, how free agency fares. Do they move on some contracts, which I think that they will. I think they're going to gut some of the roster currently and have more money to work with, fill it in maybe with a little lower end talent, but better contracts. And then, then depending on how they feel about the draft, like how far along are they, will really impact, I think, how they draft. But I think you got to get a quarterback. I'm on the Sam Darnold train. I think bring Sammy here, and draft and develop a guy if there's someone at 12 or Michael Pratt later or Joe Milton. Give me a guy with just tools and some maturity, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah. I'm not expecting anything from anyone after the 4th round. It's a flyer. We'll see how it goes. But I think with an understanding that then next year would be here's my chips, right? Like, let's solve this freaking thing. Because we've never seen Sean Payton have to do it, right? He had Drew Brees and developed Drew Brees as much as anything. I give him kudos for that. We just don't know what it's going to look like for him because he's never had to do it. So not that he can't. We just don't know what his MO would be because he's never had to, right? So who would he go get to be able to do that thing? So I'm super excited about it. I am really tired of the quarterback carousel and the graphics that we're going to get again. But I think that's the most excited I've been about the potential of adding someone to that room because I think Sean Payton will get the best out of whoever that is. Right. So even if it's mediocre journeyman, Jacoby Brissett, I think they're going to play really good football, and they're not going toe to toe with Mahomes, but I think having that mentality of you got to go get the next, I think is it fool's errand. That's not how you win football games. You beat them by having identity and being good at what you do, and you catch them on a day where you beat them. I think that's how you got to plan. So whoever they get, I have confidence that Sean Payton believes that they can do what he needs them to do because it's his pick. And so that part I'm super fascinated about, and I'll get excited about whoever that's going to be, even if I don't like them. So Spencer Rattler, Rattler. I know that got brought up earlier. I can't get over QB1.
Yeah.
I can't get over it. The kid was a tool. He was an absolute tool. I'm assuming that he grew, right? Like someone brought up if you were judged of what you did at 17, like what would your judgment be? And I was like, all right, that's fair.
Yeah.
So I'm not fully on that, but if he were to take him in the third round, right, or second round, I wouldn't have done that, but that means that he sees something in that kid that I didn't. And if he sees something, then maybe I need to reorganize my thought process, because Sean Payton will beat you up. We saw it on the sideline of that's right. So he is demanding, and he's not going to take someone I think that he doesn't believe has the fortitude to handle it. So I'm excited, man. It stinks that it's a couple months out, but free agency starts in a month. We'll have a pretty good idea of what their plan's going to be. But I'm super excited about it. So I can't wait for the continued debates over, what's the plan or what's it going. It just has a different feel this time than the QB searches of yesteryear because of the cachet you have and the guy driving the ship.
I think so too. Can I ask you guys a question real quick?
Yeah, but first we got to give you credit. My man Chris wanted to let you know.
You
Killed
Thank
it.
you.
I didn't even pay him for that. I didn't even pay him for that. So that's real.
I appreciate it, Chris. Broncos extended Jonas Griffin.
Yeah.
That's
1
cool.
year. Yeah, signed a 1 year extension. So I think he's played all but, or he's missed all but like 5 games in the last 2 years because of injury. But really good special teamer, good athletic guy. You assume Josie's probably gone. It's good depth there. So, all right. Now,
here's my question. What would you guys think of if the Broncos just went out and drafted a Rattler, Pratt, or one of these guys that you think maybe falls to the 3rd, 4th round and just said, screw it, he's starting this year? How would you guys feel about that? I imagine like I know there's like a Mac Jones train for the Broncos right now because people are liking the idea of maybe we can make something out of a younger type of guy that's failed elsewhere. Am I missing out on much of that potential with a guy like Spencer Rattler or Michael Pratt or one of these guys? What would be your opinion there? Because I just think like, hey, maybe we find something or maybe we suck, and I'm okay sucking.
It's hard. I think it for me, it just kind of depends on who it is. I think that I'm probably mostly would be against something like that just because I'd rather see those guys develop behind someone with that has a little more experience. Like you said, those guys are not going to be your most polished guys, but we've seen guys, and probably more so in recent years than ever. Brock Purdy's a great example of someone that can come in and manage an offense, whether you like his tools or not. And I'm probably probably dislike Brock Purdy more than the majority of people, just overall. But like it works, but it works if you have that identity. And I don't know that we have a strong enough identity to plug someone in like that and find success.
Yeah.
I guess it maybe depends on, who they bring in. If they're really, like you said, if they're going to commit to protecting him or if they're going to commit to bringing in a playmaking running back, that's going to take a lot of pressure off. Then maybe I would feel better about it. As it stands today, I probably wouldn't go that route.
Okay.
If they did that, my assumption would be, especially if that's the plan, is they're tanking, right? Like they're just, maybe you find a diamond in the rough, but say for instance, though, they bring in a vet and they draft Spencer Rattler. I'm going to say that because I don't like that. That would be like,
yeah.
And if he starts the season, so he wins the competition or they believe in him, it's similar. I mean, that's essentially, Kyle Shanahan knew early that Brock Purdy was the best quarterback on their roster. I don't know if anyone's heard that. So they weren't ready to start him, but he's like, I think that this guy is our best one. So if that happened, it's interesting because it's like if that is a hit, right? Like fiscally, what it does for your team. If Sam Howell didn't go on that, the end of the season tank, if you find a guy in the 3rd or 4th round that can be an above average quarterback for your team, like the advantage it gives you financially to build, it's Jalen Hurts, right? So it's with the 2nd round pick, that salary before you got to pay up. you can just do so much. So if that were the case, there's a competitive opportunity and that person wins it. I'd be pretty excited. I feel like there would be a plan. And then I also know that there's minimal risk. So if they stink, right, you can turn the page a lot quicker. Like, that's not if it's a third or fourth rounder, that's not their committed plan.
Yeah.
You don't commit to that. But if they were to be the starter, I'd feel pretty good about it. Again, I trust Sean Payton until he shows me otherwise, based on, I think, his acumen. So if he picked one of those guys after a competition with Jarrett Stidham and Jameis Winston, I would feel like, all right, you got a guy that you feel like sees the field the way you want him to see it. And that would be pretty exciting. It'd be super frightening though. Not gonna lie. Like, this is what we're doing. But I mean, is that any worse than Jarrett Stidham, who was a 4th round pick? That's essentially what we're going to roll out. Just a guy that's had a little bit more NFL experience. So that's an interesting question. It'll be funny to come back to that after the draft and be like, hey, if this guy starts game 1 on the road at Kansas City, how are we going to feel about that? Like,
to me, it just feels like if I start Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, he's shown me nothing other than we can be average.
Right.
And what's the value of average in the NFL, especially when you're trying to rehaul something?
Yep.
Like, I would rather go out there and try to at least take a shot at future somewhere. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I can move off of that guy. I think something that we all should have learned from Russell Wilson is it's better to miss cheap than missing expensive. And that's kind of what that would be. Like,
for sure.
So
it really is, right? Like that's the good part to identify it, is there's no harm in it. You're not going to lose anything.
Right.
If you have at least an average quarterback, I think that you're able to better assess the talent around him, right? So better assess the offensive line if the ball's getting out on time. Then if they get beat, that's an offensive line problem, not Russ holding the ball forever. So there's some of that. Like, you at least want competent play back there so you can adequately assess. Right. That said, I'd rather just get that then from a 4th round pick that doesn't cost much, instead of you go spend $15 million on Sam Darnold coming here and he gives you what Michael Pratt would at $900,000, which sounds like a lot for us, but this isn't the same kind of money.
Yeah. You got like 5-10 more minutes, JR. You got to go. You got to run.
Absolutely. I got you guys.
I just wanted to throw some rapid fire. So assuming the Broncos pick at 12, let's just say they stand pat just for for this exercise specifically. I'm gonna throw some names.
Yeah, it's not real exercise. We're not gonna make you run.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm just gonna throw some names out there and see how you would feel about that being the Broncos selection.
Okay.
So I pulled up, what is this one? PFF's big board. So I'm just gonna pull a few off of here that may be in that range. Let's start with cornerback Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. Maybe just a thought on him or that position in general. Would you draft a cornerback, one of the top tier cornerbacks at that spot?
I really like this because I've heard nothing but if they draft a cornerback after all the investment. So I actually really want to hear your take for.
Okay. Ultimately, if it was the best position available, I would still do it. I think you still need blue chip talent on the Broncos, but it would suck knowing that I have the best corner in the league on one side.
Yeah.
And I would love to just go cheap on the other side because I have the best corner. Why do I have to do that? And then also, it feels like I'm kind of just lighting my Riley Moss pick on fire if I did that.
Right. That's true.
So it's that kind of would be a question. But ultimately, if it was far and away the best player available, still do it.
Yeah.
Still do it.
Me too, because it's a premium position, right? I mean, it's like you can't have enough good ones.
Right. Absolutely.
So it's not like a center. We just keep drafting centers. Like, there's only one that can play center in the league. Like, guard and all that stuff. But if Terrion Arnold were the pick at 12, I'd be ecstatic. Yeah. Partly because I know when you're going against Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes and Joey B, right? Like, having two guys that will lock your face down as corners, and then Jaquan McMillan inside, and Riley Moss, maybe he moves to safety because he has the prerequisite skill set to play safety.
Right.
Can't quite put my finger on it, but anyway. But I would be stoked about it because it is a position that if you hit, especially in the first round where you get that 5th-year option, etc., that's cost controlled because corners are expensive. So if I'm gonna use my premium pick, I want to use it on a premium position, even if I got to double it. Ideally.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How about J.C. Latham, tackle at Alabama?
Really good run blocker. I would be worried. You locked Mike McGlinchey up on the right side, so I think. Am I okay sitting a tackle for a year because I don't think he can switch to left, and if I moved Bulls. So if I am fine with my offensive line, ultimately, sure, I'd do it. Hey, yeah, he's a really good run blocker. I think he's one of the best run blockers, if not the best run blocker in this draft, and really light feet. He has all the tools to end up being a really quality right tackle in the league. And if you like Zach Strief as much as I do, I think that's a solid pick.
Yeah. How about Dallas Turner?
Not the biggest Dallas Turner guy. I wouldn't do that one. I wouldn't do Dallas Turner. Passer's a little too light for me.
Yeah.
You're saying he's a little too light in the pants?
Yeah, I think
enough junk in the trunk.
And I already have 3 of those guys. So
yeah, right. Yeah, give me someone that's something to do something better.
How about tight end Brock Bowers?
This would be like my dream pick right here.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. The way Sean Payton runs his offense, we got so much out of guys that fill specific roles in this offense, like Chris Manhurts. This is a player that I didn't expect to do much, and then I'm watching the film at the end of the year. I'm like, man, this Chris Manhurts dude blocks so hard. Or little Jordan Humphrey in the big slot role. Like what? He's like starting by the end of the year. Like he's getting so much out of these role players that I just imagine Brock Bowers filling all these different roles at once while also being like your best pass catcher. It'd be amazing. Brock Bowers would be an insane get for the Broncos, specifically for Sean Payton's offense.
Yeah. How about Jarzon Newton out of Illinois, defensive tackle?
I think too early for him. I think he's super disruptive. I think he's a great pass rusher. Again, though, I just have a preference at interior defensive line, and I want my guys to be able to hold up on double teams, stuff like that. And I don't think Jarzon, that's where he's best.
Yeah, I agree. And I think he's good. I don't think he's like a dominant enough pass rusher where you could overlook the lack of size a little bit. I'd love to have him, but definitely, I agree with you. It's a little too rich. Rich.
This will be for both of you. How about Jared Verse out of Florida State?
Yes.
I like Verse. Just plain and simple, if I were to say it, no scouting terms involved. I interviewed Devin Jackson the other day. I'm like, dude, you say things so much better than me. Like, I don't know. I was like, yeah, this guy screws the play up a lot. He's like very disrupt. I don't know. But Jared Verse, simply put, when he puts hands on people, they move. And I got like that's something that shows up every single time against good competition, good tackle play. Jared Verse has the heaviest hands. I think he's out of those top 3 edge rushers, he's the best against the run too. I think Verse would be the one I would feel most comfortable with at 12.
Yeah, he reminds me a little bit of, and it might be far-fetched, but of Khalil Mack when he was coming up. Like he's extremely stout. He's probably like a B+ or A- player now, right? I don't know how far he can go up, and I think you probably tweeted this out, Joe. I don't know about his ceiling maybe being as high as some of the other guys, but his floor is like right underneath him, and he does have some room to grow. I think, as he learns more technique and more moves, I think he is ready-made, and he provides something, like you said earlier, Joey, that we don't have. We don't have a guy that will leave a mark when he hits you in the shoulder pads, right? It's we got some knee benders and that kind of stuff, but we need someone that will complement that, and that's a guy like Verse to me.
Absolutely.
All right, I got one more. This may be maybe wouldn't fall this far, but
okay.
Roma Dunze, Washington receiver.
I would definitely take Rome Odunze would be awesome. He's big, he's fast, he's physical, and he's a lot better of a route runner than you would expect from being big and fast. Like usually, like what you usually see from big and fast is like Keon Coleman's coming out this year where it's like, ooh, I really want you to get better as a separator, though. I love everything about you, but please get open more. Rome Odunze,
you got to create a window, man. Like,
Rome has that down. Like, he's a very solid receiver. I'd be shocked if he wasn't good in the NFL.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. The last one. So not a specific person, but if you had to pick a quarterback outside of the top 3, would you take any of them at 12?
JJ McCarthy is the closest I'd come down to, and that would be ultimate. Would be trust Sean Payton. We are trusting Sean Payton pick with this one. This is why if the NFL picks Trey Lance at 3, right? If we're going to talk about JJ McCarthy and his lack of volume passing,
right?
We drafted Trey Lance with 1 year of college ball experience. Half the career attempts of JJ McCarthy with our 3rd pick, and we traded everything up to go get him. JJ is going to go earlier than people expect. He just is. I think I'd feel most comfortable with them.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Killed it, bro.
All right. Well, we kept Joey a little long today, but thank you, Joey. We appreciate you coming on. As always, enjoy talking draft. We'll always be interacting with you on Twitter, keeping an eye on your stuff. Tell people where they can find you normally, though.
Yeah, please, everybody, follow me at JR Drafts on Twitter. You can find my podcast at the Let's Talk Broncos. I'm doing a bunch of cool draft stuff over there, too. We have a bunch of different content creators. If you guys like Broncos football, go to Let's Talk Broncos. And then also, I just appreciate JT and Doc here for Dr. Manning for allowing me on their platform. It's super fun. I enjoy coming on here every year. And like you guys said, you were one of the first to have me on a few years back. So I appreciate that as well.
Of course. Doc, any closing thoughts?
No. Jerry, you're the best, man. You're dope. We will get you back on again because I think, especially as free agency hits, I think the Broncos will be a little bit more active than most people do but not top end active.
Yeah.
But I believe that this roster will get overhauled. They're not going to trade for Justin Fields because Justin Fields is just a younger Russell Wilson right now. I would love it. That'd be great. But ain't gonna happen. So we would definitely have you on. I appreciate your time, JT. You're the man too.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to talk when draft rolls around. See what y'all are doing. Maybe we can combine and talk draft, or even just watch some draft together because
that'd be fun.
I know we all enjoy that. But everyone, thank you so much today for your time. We appreciate you checking in with us, and that's it for today. We'll see you next time around. Thanks.
See you. We out.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute,